Going over very important topics with you and your child. Again, the whole goal for it, though, is to have everybody have a safe, enjoyable prom. With that said, my part of the ceremony tonight is to kind of give you an outlay of what the prom is, what we expect out of the kids, what safety precautions we have in place to make sure that they have a safe, enjoyable prom. And at some point, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. So I'm going to start off by saying the prom is on May 24th, that's Thursday, May 24th, at Jumping Brook Country Club. So if you weren't aware, Thursday, May 24th, Jumping Brook Country Club. 23rd, sorry. Thank you. I knew it was Thursday. Thursday, May 23rd, thank you. Jumping Brook Country Club. Wow, I should have wrote that down correctly. The hours for the prom are 6 to 10 p.m. Students can arrive as early as 6. They must be in the prom by 7 p.m. If there is something outrageous that holds them from getting there at that time, they need to contact us and let us know. We would let them in, but if they just don't show up by 7 p.m., then we don't let them in. If something really delayed them, there were years where the traffic was just so terrible that they couldn't get in. They got ahead to us, let us know, and then as long as we're aware of it, we would let them in later. But bottom line of it is we want them in by 7 p.m. They're not allowed to leave before 9 p.m. So the hours that they must attend are between 7 and 9. I know everybody likes that fashion. Nobody wants to be the first person, so we get it. I can tell you that between 6 and 7 p.m., as we get closer to 7 p.m., the traffic backs up something fierce. Jumping Brook has kind of an easy entranceway. It's a long driveway. We have a good protocol for how the cars come in, loop around, drop the kids off, and then we send them back out. We do have a good system for that, but it does get backed up. As a parent, if you'd like to come out there to view your child, take photos, we invite that, we encourage that. We just ask that you stay behind the barricades, because what ends up happening is, as families get excited, they want to see their kids, everybody kind of gets away in the flow of traffic. So we do have barricades set there purposely so that, number one, you're safe and that your child's safe upon the arrival. We do want you to have the opportunity to take photos as you wish, but please, we ask that you respect the barricades so that we can make sure that everybody doesn't have an issue with any kind of safety issues. As far as rules for the prom, all school rules apply. So it is a school event. Kids are expected to behave in the manner that they would in school. If they have any behavioral issues, we will ask them to leave the prom. In terms of safety precautions that we have in place, we do have bag checks as the students come in. So anybody carrying a bag, their bag will be searched. And anybody, as the students come in, there is also random breathalyzers. So what we end up doing is we have a count, we have a number, the students don't know what that number is, but every so many students, we pull them aside, bring them in, do a random breathalyzer to check for anybody that's possibly under the influence, intoxicated. If we find that they are under the influence or they are intoxicated, we will contact you as a parent. You will have to come and get your child, and then from that point forward, it will have further consequences, because our expectation is that everybody comes there, and they come there under the right circumstances. They do not come there under the influences. If a student shows signs of being under the influence, whether we have random breathalyzer or not, we will also pull those students aside. So yes, we do have the random breathalyzer in place, but if we feel at any point that a student may be under the influence, we will pull them aside, have them assessed, and then again, we would go through the same protocol. We would contact you as a parent, you would have to come get the child, take the child home, and then there would be further consequences from there. The random breathalyzer checks for if a student has alcohol. If we feel that a student is under the influence of any other narcotic, then what we will require from the parent is not only you have to pick up your child, but your child has to go to and be tested at the hospital, okay, in order to return and be eligible to come back to school. All right, so I just want to make that all clear. Again, the message is we want a safe, enjoyable event. We want to make sure the kids have a good time, they enjoy their prom, but we want them to come back to us safely after the prom. In terms of awareness events, we do have, and again, parents are invited to attend, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to make sure it's May 22nd, yes? Okay. May 22nd, we have our How to Save a Life Prom Assembly with the senior students. It's a one-of-a-kind event. I say one of a kind. I know everybody, some of the students here may have been involved at some point, so they may have seen it before. But we try to change it a little bit every year. Bottom line, the event is unlike any other program here in the county or in the state for that matter, where we get them an opportunity to see a live scene of a crash. And that presentation is given by their fellow classmates, our Teen Pep program. And the purpose of that assembly is to kind of simulate or get them the idea of what could happen if a student were ever in a car crash based on being intoxicated, and what the ramifications and what the effects of that could be. It's a really emotional ceremony, to be honest with you. We've had a lot of years where, because of classes, how close they are with each other, actually cry when they see their classmates, the condition they are as we simulate the crash. And again, the message is, we don't want this to happen to you. It's a great assembly. We have a lot of community partnerships that get involved. We have, if you've ever seen it or ever had the ability to see it, we have helicopters with all these different things going on, all these community partners that come in to simulate what would happen in a real live accident like that. Again, strong message, difficult message for some, but we want to tell the kids, we don't want this to happen to you. Okay? The date of that, yes, it's May 22nd. 9 a.m. start, Ms. Caroline?
Yeah, 9:15.
9:15 start. Okay, so with that all said, I will open at this time, if you have any questions on anything I just said in terms of our expectations for the kids, times, prom, like what we expect for them when they're there at the prom. Wow, that's my job. All right, so with that said, I'm going to move on. So we do have a couple of great guest speakers here tonight. Our first guest speaker is from Long Branch Police Department, Detective Simonelli. What Detective Simonelli is going to go over with everyone is host liability. What happens if somebody decides to host a prom party and some other points too as well. So I'm going to turn it over this time to Detective Simonelli.
In fact, I'm going to try to use my voice like he did, because I don't like using a microphone. It's pretty simple, like he said, Mr. Michaud. The whole point of the prom is to be safe and enjoyable for the kids. As a parent, I know we all get caught up a little bit, and we want to help our kids out. But if you're going to host a pre or post-prom party afterwards, you will be liable if anything happens. In the state of New Jersey, one drink for a kid is considered under the influence if something happens. So think about that. We work so hard to have things, and 1 second can be all taken away. It's not only here. A lot of our kids rent houses down in Point Pleasant or the Poconos or other places. You're still liable. If your name is on that, if you're hosting that party and you're doing that, you will be responsible. You could be arrested, you could be put in jail, and you could be sued for a lot of money. All right? Because if one thing happens in a car accident, there's 3 or 4 kids in there, all those parents are probably going to sue you. All right? So think about that. The kids are here to have a safe and enjoyable fun. As adults, let's help them do that. All right? I'm not going to get too much into the alcohol because you guys understand that. But as a cop, I will tell you something to be careful of right now. It's not just the alcohol that we worry about today. Worry about the vapes and the gummy bears. All right? The kids are using vapes and using candy that is THC, marijuana, and other things right now. So when you start seeing that, the group of kids are outside all passing the vape around. They're not smoking a Juul or something like that. 9 out of 10 times, it's probably going to be THC. So just keep for you to be something to be mindful of. If you start seeing a bunch of candy in bags, gummy bears, worms, anything like that, keep in mind, it may not be regular candy. All right? It's very simple. They're getting smarter, it looks easy, but the kids think they're getting over it. All right? But like I said, as a homeowner, as a parent with 2 kids, I wanted my kids, when they went to the prom, I wanted to have a great, enjoyable time. Once they leave your house, you don't have to worry about it. And it starts at the house. So remember that. All right? It's very simple. Anyone have any questions with that? Mine is very quick. All right? Everyone have a good time. Good luck to your kids at graduation and prom night.
Okay, and so our final guest speaker for the evening is, he comes to us from Nashville, Tennessee, and I heard some great feedback. The kids actually got a chance to hear him speak today. I heard some great feedback from some of the people that are involved in the assembly, some of the staff involved, some of the kids involved. He has a really good message, and that message entails things that he's gone through himself. And so I'm going to not try to steal his thunder, let him explain his story to you. But at this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Michael D. Leone to come on up as our guest speaker.
All right. So I have a real lot I wanted to talk about. I'll have everybody out of here by about 10 o'clock, 10:15. All right? Yeah, I didn't think so. So anyway, when I do a panel night like this, I'm real thrilled about how many people came here, and I know that most of you are here because you have to be here, or your kid won't go to the prom, I get it. Well, I'm just glad that you're here. I really wish I could have 90 minutes to 2 hours to talk to you, but obviously I'm not going to keep you all that long. I want to touch on some points. Ask your children about my presentation today, and they'll tell you about it. My website is called steeredstraight.org. I have everything on there. You heard of scared straight. Well, you can't scare kids straight. These kids scare me sometimes. So steered straight. I did 12 years in New Jersey State Prison. I got out of prison in 2007. What I wanted to do, I started a program in prison called Project Pride, where 2 male and 2 female inmates would leave prison every day and come out to talk to students about making good choices, right? Better than the ones we made. Well, it was very rewarding, and it's the largest outreach program in the country, still exists today. But I wanted to continue that impact on young people. I wanted people to grow up to be, who they're supposed to be, not be me. So I started calling some principals and superintendents, good morning. I just got out of prison, I want to come talk to your kids. Hello? Hello? I hung up on it. It wasn't easy. 2007, 2008, 9, 10, working a lot of North Jersey schools. Corey Booker was a councilman. He helped me get into the newer school system. And now I did 616 schools last year in 40 states. I've spoken in 48 states. I am in front of about 1.6 million, well, last year was 1.6 million students in conferences, camps, juvenile detention centers. I spent 12 years trying to get out of prison. Now I spend every day trying to get back in. I want to go in with educational programs so I can turn inmates' lives around. I want to go to treatment programs where kids are getting help for addiction to drugs and alcohol. And so I'm on a mission. I work 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I'm on a mission. There's a lot I want to share with you, but I want to give you some important points. When I do pre-prom like this, I really talk a lot about the prom that night or that weekend, or really the season, because if it's juniors and seniors, obviously seniors are graduating, the entire season of this springtime where a lot of things happen and a lot of accidents happen. I don't want to do that tonight because what I think I have to share with you is much more important. I have some business cards, I probably should have brought more, but I have a website, steeredstraight.org, and what I want to tell you about is on my website, there's a program called Table Talks. And you sit here in 2019, and if you're my age, you have no idea what drugs are. You have no idea what's going on. The difference between the 70s and the 80s in 2019 can't be more farther apart than it is. You just have no idea what's taking place. And so I try to give people information. And I want you to talk to your kids about drugs. You should have 5 conversations a week around the dinner table. Phones should be put away. Imagine that, right? Phones should be put away. But most people I know can't have dinner with their kids 5 nights a week. So I came up with a program called Table Talks. If it's the breakfast table, the lunch table, the dinner table, picnic table, if it's Applebee's and everyone puts their phones away, take one of the table talks and turn it into a dashboard conversation. And I came up with the conversations, 5 a week for 52 weeks out of the year. Every prevention organization in the country advocates for the family dinner time. I advocate for the family conversation time because not everybody can have 5 dinners a week with their kids, but you can have 5 conversations. So I came up with 260 conversations for the week. My wife came up with 104 family field trips for the weekends, and I weave the conversation into every single one of them. And you're going to get the current language, the current trends, what's happening, what drug is popular, what is really happening, to be able to have those conversations. So one thing I just wanted to mention to you is I'm working on a project in Paradise Valley, Arizona, Scottsdale, Arizona, and I've built up the mindset for the last 10 years that if we randomly drug test our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders 3 times a year, that we would eliminate 50% of drug experimentation in high school. And now I'm proving it. We're in the second year of a 3-year study, and schools aren't doing it, we have parents doing it. You should randomly drug test your 6th, 7th, and 8th grader 3 times a year, 9 times in middle school, and you'll eliminate 50% of the experimentation freshman and sophomore year. So I'm not trying to get parents to drug test their kids to catch them. I want drug tests to be a deterrent. So when someone inquires about doing drugs, they can say, my mom's nuts, my parents are crazy. Like they drug test me randomly, and if I get caught, I'll lose my iPhone 10, and I'm in the 6th grade, I need my iPhone 10, so I'm not going to use drugs. As you get into high school, that's less of a deterrent, so I'm sure at least half the people in this room have elementary and middle school kids. I'm telling you right now, it's one of the most important things you could ever do. And most of the time, parents who tell me they wouldn't do that, they tell me they won't do it because they want their kids to trust them. Now, I was the worst parent in America, okay? I don't ever tell a parent how to be a parent. But for me, that idea, that reason doesn't work. So I was trying to figure out a way to have parents drug test their kids without their kids knowing about it. So I came up with a great idea, and I pitched it to my wife first. I pitch everything to my wife first because she's the smartest girl on planet Earth, and I just run things by her. So I said I'm going to tell parents while their kids are sleeping, you know, cut the back of their hair and stick it in a little vial and send it off to the lab. And my wife is like, something's wrong with you. And I'm like, what do you mean? I said, I got to have parents to drug test their kids and the kids don't know about it. She's like, you can't tell them to cut their hair while they're sleeping. I'm like, why? I would. She goes, that's why you're not putting the grandkids to bed when they're over, okay? I mean, you can't do that. Well, how am I going to do that, right? Ronald Reagan had a great expression, trust but verify. And I want you to trust your kids. I want your kids to know that you trust them, but I want you to go behind them and verify it. So I was trying to figure out a way to get you to drug test your kids without your kids' knowledge. So I was standing at JFK Airport, and I got randomly selected by TSA. And they pulled me over to the side and took my laptop bag and my tablet and everything. And they were rubbing this little cloth on my stuff, and then they put it in a machine and it goes beep and they tell you, have a nice day, right? What they're checking for is powder and liquid bomb-making material, and that machine tests for that. And I'm looking at this machine, I'm like, that's what I need. I got the answer, man. I just need to get one of those machines in every family's house. Yeah, that won't work. So I called up the guy who came up with the technology, and I told him my idea, what I wanted to do. So for the last 18 months, we've been working on it. And on my website, steeredstraight.org, right at the top of the page, there's a little box that says Parents and Pot. We just went on the Today Show 3 months ago. This thing's exploding. And what it is a swab, a specially made swab, that you can walk into your kid's room and you can swab their tablet, their Xbox, the windowsill, the desk, and their phone, and then rub a panel that's in the kit. And if the panel turns red, there's THC present. It's not the answer because you still have to do something now, but it gives you the knowledge that you need to be able to understand that your child is THC around them. 21 years of age and older in this country, if someone wants to use marijuana, I mean, I think it's stupid, but I don't have an opinion. Someone 21 years of age and older wants to drink, I don't have an opinion. I don't drink, I'm allergic to alcohol. If I drink alcohol, I break out in handcuffs. So I don't drink alcohol. That was funny in my head. So if an adult wants to drink alcohol, I don't have an opinion. If an adult wants to smoke weed, I don't have an opinion. If an adult wants to smoke cigarettes or vape, hey, it's the #1 killer in America, and you probably know that, and if you choose to make that choice, it's hard to quit. My only mission in life is your children. All I care about is 20-year-old citizens and younger. I don't want them drinking. I mean, I really, rather than wait until they're in their late 20s, because the brain doesn't develop into your late 20s. My wife says for men it's 55, so I'll be there next year, but the kids' brains are not developed. And so if you stimulate the brain with nicotine, if you depress the brain with alcohol, if you hallucinate the brain with THC, on the developing adolescent brain, you are going to have problems. Maybe little problems, maybe big problems, maybe death. Monmouth County is the #2 county in New Jersey for death from opioids. Ocean County is #1. Has been that way since 2007. Front page of every newspaper in New Jersey, January 4th. New Jersey lost more people to an overdose death last year than any year in New Jersey history. 2019 is going to be worse. 2020 will be worse. The peak of this will not subside till 2026, 2027. This is going to get worse as meth explodes, cocaine explodes, LSD explodes. You're starting hearing a lot more about LSD, promise you. And the kids are caught up in this lie that these things aren't harmful, right? Well, the biggest lie is pot, is THC, is marijuana. I'm not a Republican and I'm not a Democrat. I'm telling you what's happening across the country. And there's a lot of people in New Jersey, 54% according to the poll that was done before the vote got polled by Senator Sweeney. 54% of New Jersey likely voters said marijuana should be legalized for recreational purposes. That's because 54% of New Jersey voters have no idea what marijuana is. If you think it's that stuff Cheech and Chong's were smoking, think again. If you remember a little movie, your kids will think it's a stupid movie, but remember Fast Times at Ridgemont High? Remember Kevin Spicoli, you know, he fell out of the van, he's hitting his head with a sneaker. We're laughing at him when he orders pizza to Mr. Hand's class. Am I the only one with that movie on my phone? I love that movie. And it was funny, we were watching Cheech and Chong's, we were laughing, we thought weed was funny. Weed got you hungry, you're eating Doritos, you're in your parents' basement, you know, and you're eating chips, you think it's funny, okay? Well, the industry that figured out that we would be that naive and we would compare today's marijuana to 1985's marijuana, they really capitalized on that, and now we have a big problem. And there's very few people in this room that understand, very few adults in this room that understand how bad the problem is. So I want to give you a little glimpse of it, but I want to give you an ability to test your kid's room for THC, for marijuana. I figured these tests would come back at 20 bucks. Well, they came back at $2.50. For $2.50, for 10 bucks, you can get 4 kids. You swab an area of the room, you swab the panel, if it turns red, you have a THC issue. We came up with a cocaine test, a heroin test, an amphetamine test, a methamphetamine test, fentanyl, and next month nicotine comes out. So if your kid's vaping nicotine in the room, you won't smell it. But if that nicotine exhalation, that cocaine comes out, it will settle on a surface. So you can take the swab and you can run any surface in that room, and I'll tell you if nicotine is on the surfaces in that room for $2.50. So on our website, steeredstraight.org, is the link, and I'm telling you right now, it's one of the best $10 you'll ever spend. I got out of prison in 2007, and we were in the beginning stages of a heroin epidemic, and people really didn't believe me. I actually spoke at a conference here in this county 2 months after I got out of prison, and I was talking about my story and how I ended up in prison and how difficult it's going to be as an ex-offender to function in life. And I was speaking at a police chief meeting. There's about 300 police officers and chiefs there, and I did a presentation and I was talking about heroin, right? And so I had a detective from the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office come up to me after the presentation, and he said, "You're very passionate. I actually learned a lot from you today. I just got one point of contention with everything that you said." And I said, what's that? And he said, heroin. I said, what do you mean? He said, man, take that story down to the ghetto, man. This is Monmouth County. We don't have a heroin problem up here. And I said, how long have you been in law enforcement? And it was a real disrespectful thing for someone like me with my background to ask that hero with his background, right? But I asked it, and he said 25 years. I said, you never busted anybody for heroin? He goes, sure I do, but when I bust them, they're from Camden, they're from Trenton, they're from Newark and Patterson. I said, well, what the hell are they doing up here in Freehold then? What are they doing up here in Colts then? Hey, maybe the users are up here. He says, yeah, we got users, we bust them, but they're few and far between. What'd you call it, an epidemic? Stop running around the country like Chicken Little telling everybody that the sky is falling. And I go, Chicken Little? Damn. I hope you find me in 5 years to call me the biggest idiot you ever met in your life. Look me up, 2012. Look me up and tell me how wrong I was, because I hope I'm wrong. Well, I never saw him again. In 2007, Monmouth County became the second highest county in New Jersey for deaths from heroin and opioids. Ocean County became number 1, 2007. They've been number 1 and number 2 every single year, including this year so far as of first quarter. And so I was feeling like Nostradamus, right? And 2010, 3 years later, my best friend's daughter dies of a heroin overdose. She was a third-year student at Drexel University. She was 22. And if I took you to her house and showed you how she grew up, there's no way in hell you'd have thought that that girl was going to die of a heroin overdose. Straight A student, salutatorian of her high school class, Drexel University, straight A's. Well, it made me want to go back to school to become a drug counselor. I went to Cumberland Community College and I became a drug counselor. I got a certificate. It's called a CADC. You have to counsel for 1,600 hours to take the state exam. And I was on my way. I put a caseload together of 26 kids from the age of 18 to 32. I saw each person for 1 hour of one-on-one therapy per week. I was doing 26 hours a week, 4 hours of paperwork. I was on my way to my hours, right? January 10th, January 20th, 2012, 4 kids on my caseload died of a fentanyl-laced heroin overdose. An 18-year-old girl named Ashley, a 19-year-old boy named Mark, a 22-year-old girl named Samantha, and a 23-year-old boy named Brandon. And every kid, including Amber, my best friend's daughter, had 2-parent households. They had every protected factor you could have as a kid. They were honor roll students, National Honor Society. They were 3 letter varsity athletes, and every single one of them had college scholarships. And I just didn't understand. I mean, I look in the mirror and I look at my life and I look at my trauma and I look at my background and I get it. I know why I turned into an addict. But I looked at these 5 kids and I said, there's no way. At the time I was working part-time on a TV show called Vice on HBO. I did 7 seasons on HBO's Vice. All over the world I filmed addicts in prisons all over the world. And I went to HBO Documentary Films. I had a meeting with 7 producers. And I told them about the 5 kids. And I said, I want to do a documentary on the changing face of heroin. And HBO wasn't interested. They said no. So I said, all right, I'll do it myself. I took my camera equipment and I went down to Camden, New Jersey. I'm walking down the city streets of Camden carrying 2 tripods with my cameras on them and my earphones around my neck. I looked like a straight up idiot. I'm walking down Broadway looking for someone who was hooked on heroin. It took me about 30 seconds. So I walked over to her. I said, how you doing? She goes, good, how you doing? I said, I'm looking for someone who maybe can help me. I'm making a documentary. I'm looking for someone who maybe was hooked on prescription pills out in the suburbs and now they're homeless on the streets of Camden hooked on heroin. She goes, my God, that's my story. I said, would you tell me your story? She told me her story. I stood there for 20 minutes and I wasn't prepared for what I heard. I really wasn't. I sat in my car and cried like a little baby for 20 minutes, man. And then I ended my little pity party and I got out of my car. And I interviewed 4 more kids that day. I went to Camden almost every single day for 10 months. 10 months. And I interviewed 137 kids on the streets of Camden. And it's really light in here and it's really hard to see that, but there's 4 kids up there that were in my movie. And that girl in the upper right-hand corner, she lived in this abandoned house on the lower right-hand corner. And I said I'm taking this into school to show kids about drugs. And she pulled up her arm sleeves, and it's hard to see, but she's got abscesses from her head to her toe. She's 21, she weighed about 105 pounds. She looked sick, and she's 21 years old. And 4 years earlier, that girl, Christina, walked across her high school graduating stage to accept salutatorian of her high school class. She had a full ride to Temple University. She was an academic scholarship. She became a cheerleader for the Owls. She fell off a pyramid at a football game. She fractured her tailbone. And they put her on unlimited pain medication. And unlimited pain medication turned to the abuse of that unlimited pain medication, and that turned into heroin. And she was walking the streets of Camden, jumping in and out of cars all day to support her 25-bag-a-day heroin habit. Salutatorian of her high school graduating class with a full ride to Temple, and 4 years later, she's dead from heroin. Man, I wish this was an outlier. I wish this was one person I found. I went to Camden almost every single day for 10 months. And I interviewed 137 heroin addicts on the streets of Camden. My goal was I wanted to prove that heroin addicts, for the most part, start with opioid pain medication. Some rotator cuff tear and the doctor hands out 60 perks. some wisdom tooth coming out of the dentist hands out 90 OxyContin. The reason we're having 75,000 to 100,000 overdose deaths from opioids and heroin in America today is because our medical community had puppet strings pulled by the pharmaceutical industry. That's why there's 1,600 lawsuits going on right now. Well, we started handing out opioids like they were Skittles. And that's why we're here where we are today. Well, I wanted to prove that, and I did. 137 addicts, 121 of them abused opioid medication before finding themselves on heroin. But what I found out when I filmed this movie changed my mission and changed my life. 137 kids, every single one of them had 3 things in common. Every single one smoked cigarettes or they vaped prior to 18. Every single one of them drank alcohol, and every single one of them smoked weed. I call it the trifecta gateway. And as that officer detective said, you know, parents think it's okay, I hear parents say, well, I know they're going to drink, so I take their keys and let them all drink at the house. If you condone underage drinking under your roof, you increase underage drinking outside of it. If you allow a child, and I'm not talking about culture, okay? Because there's alcohol consumption in culture and religion. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when kids are getting wasted on alcohol after a prom or a prom weekend, and parents think that it's just alcohol. It's no big deal. Or it's just weed, the weed that we used to smoke. Or listen, vaping is safer than cigarettes. I'd rather have them vape than smoke cigarettes. I'm going to tell you something. 100% of the kids that I interviewed in that movie used all 3 of those products before the age of 18. 90% of the 10,000 addicts that I've interviewed across the world in my life all started with those 3 things prior to 18, including me. And so I knew heroin wasn't a problem just in Kensington, Philly, and Camden. I knew it was a national pandemic. So I got in my car and I traveled across the country. I went to 30 states and I interviewed 500 parents who lost their kids to an overdose of drugs. 500. I asked every single parent a series of questions. And one of those questions that I asked, prior to the age of 18, did your son or daughter drink alcohol? Yes. Did they smoke weed? Yes. Did they smoke cigarettes or vape? 500 out of 500 said yes to all 3 questions. 90% of this is beginning prior to 18, and it starts with 3 drugs. So, I was filming an American Epidemic that's available on YouTube. It's available on my website. I was filming an American Epidemic, and I interviewed a woman whose daughter died the night before graduation. And so it was a real tough interview. And I was kind of walking the city streets of Boulder, just kind of in a daze, just trying to clear my head. And I came across a marijuana dispensary. Colorado had just legalized marijuana, and I just thought, you know, it's just weed, until I started researching. So I made a movie, it's called Marijuana X. It's on YouTube. I call it Marijuana X because it's not marijuana anymore. But I spent 10 months in Colorado and tried most of the state interviewing people that could really give me the truth about marijuana legalization. So that whole movie's on YouTube and you should watch it. So I want to tell you now a little bit about, see, alcohol is so socially accepted and so many people, no matter what I show, no matter how I can show you 300,000 Americans die from alcohol directly every single year. Alcohol still is on the side of every NASCAR, on stadiums. People just will not listen to me about alcohol. I'm just asking you to please don't accept underage drinking. Don't, because it's a depressant. It's a depressant on the adolescent brain. And you might not think it's a bad thing. You might not think it's a big deal. You might think it's the lesser of all evils. It's not. It's the most socially accepted drug, alcohol, that we have, that no 21-year-old, 20-year-old child or younger should drink it. But let me kind of focus on 2 things, marijuana and vaping. So, I finished this marijuana movie, and I really got a wake-up call about THC. THC is one molecule of marijuana that's psychoactive. It's the one molecule of marijuana that gets you high. There's cannabidiol, 1, 2, and 3. There's medical molecules. But there's over 300 molecules in the marijuana cannabis plant. Over 300. We've only discovered 37 of them in this entire world. I've been to Israel 3 times. I interviewed a man named Dr. McCullum. He's 84 right now. He discovered THC in Israel. I'm all in. I grew more weed than you can imagine. I smoked more weed than you can imagine. I know about more weed than you can imagine. And I have a sequel coming out to the movie because people just don't get it. This line right there that's going up the chart starts in 1960 and it finishes in 2011. That's tetrahydrocannabinol, that's THC. In 1960, it was 1%. That was the plant that God put in the ground. It was 1%. By 1985, we got the potency up to about 5, 6, 7%. If you're in the 80s and you remember Cents a Million Gold and Panama Red, like the best weed you could possibly get your hands on was 7%, okay? THC potency. By 2011, the highest tested potent THC in this country was 12%. 51 years, we got it from 1 to 12. On the bottom of that chart is cannabidiol, CBD. It's non-psychoactive. I mean, it technically is psychoactive, but it doesn't get you high. But that's medical marijuana, medical molecule. Hey, I'm all for that, right? There's 3 of them. Let's harness it. Let's study it and test it. Let's make sure that these coffee shops that are putting CBD in your coffee, or these health food stores, or these vape shops that tell you CBD's in the bottle, it's not. 70% of the time it's not. 80% of the time it's got contaminants or something else in it, or THC. But let's test CBD and let's see what it can do. But that's not what this is all about. It's not. As THC went to 12% 51 years later, we legalized marijuana in Colorado and Washington in 2012, and in 2 years, we went from 12 to 37. 37% flower. Now that's not weed, right? That's not weed. In the 10th month of filming, I was in a dispensary and I found those 2 little vape bottles right there. The kid behind the counter said, yeah, this is 87% pure liquid weed. I said, what do you mean liquid weed? He goes, yeah, man, now you can vape weed. I said, what are you talking about? So my cameraman says, you know, it'd be real funny if I went ahead and vaped it, you guys record how high I get. I said, yeah, it's not the kind of movie I'm making, bro. I mean, I'm making a documentary here. And they wouldn't let up. The 5 kids that were with me filming and editing, they wouldn't let up. They kept harassing me. Come on, it'd be funny. We're going to do it anyway. So we got it, and he vaped it. 2 minutes after he vaped it, he's rolling around the floor, and he's chewing his tongue, he's foaming at the mouth. He's in convulsions, and his eyes roll in the back of his head. The kids were laughing, hysterically. The sound guy has to put his bar down because he can't stop laughing. Well, I freak out, and I call 911. They came and picked him up at the age of 23. They rushed him to the hospital. They had to intubate him in the ambulance because he wasn't breathing. He had neurological damage, right? And his mom flies in from California to fly him back 6 weeks later. And she took care of him for the last 3 years, but at the age of 60 and 110 pounds, he's getting too much for her. So she put him in a nursing home 2 weeks ago. He doesn't eat by himself, can't bathe himself, he doesn't talk. I had that tested by the DEA. I didn't buy it from a drug dealer or get it on the street. I bought it in a retail store. Colorado collected tax on that. I sought out doctors in California and Colorado, and I asked them to help me and look at his medical records. No one can tell me what did that. No one can tell me what did that. 87% THC or the chemical that's in the e-juice. I know parents sometimes think it's just vapored water. It's just juice, right? As the detective said, as the officer said, it's not just jewels and nicotine. Now, I'm telling you, you can get any drug you want in a pod. You can get these vaping devices and these e-cigarettes are about to become the drug delivery system in America. Pharmaceutical industry is investing over $2 billion in research and development right now to learn how they can put all prescription drugs in vaping devices for their patients. You can put any drug on earth in a vape. I can hack any vape that you have and I can put any drug on earth in it. That's what this is all about. I don't know what did that to that little kid, but I can tell you he'll never be the same. And it's not the drug per se, it's the drug's effect on the adolescent brain. Again, I'm not even trying to tell adults how to be adults. If adults want to abuse prescription pills, if adults want to shoot heroin, if an adult wants to snort cocaine, I don't have an opinion. I don't judge no man, no woman, but I care about kids. So I don't want anything happening until after 21. Alcohol, nicotine, and THC are the three most commercialized and pushed drugs in our country, and so many of our kids don't even think that they're drugs. Alcohol is a depressant, nicotine is a stimulant, and THC is a hallucinogen. And a lot of kids are using all three on the adolescent brain. Now, this was the tobacco industry strategy right here. Attack the health harms, target kids, obscure the science, deny any health harms, right, and form political lobbies. If you are my age, you remember all the lies. You remember the lies. But let me just remind you about one day. April 1994, Congress called tobacco companies to Washington to testify. And the top 7 CEOs of the top 7 tobacco companies were sitting before Congress, and Congressman Wyden from Oregon asked them all a question. Here's the top 7 CEOs from the top 7 tobacco companies in the world.
Yes, you believe nicotine is not addictive?
I believe nicotine is not addictive, yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Congressman, cigarettes and nicotine clearly do not meet the classic definitions of addiction.
I don't believe that nicotine or our products are addictive.
I believe nicotine is not addictive.
I believe that nicotine is not addictive.
I believe that nicotine is not addictive.
And I too believe that nicotine is not addictive.
So I played for the kids. I said, were they lying? And the kids say, of course they were lying. Now, we all knew they were lying. Congress knew they were lying. That's why Congress fined them $800 billion, but they gave them 30 years to pay. And they went worldwide with all the Joe Camel and Marlboro Man ads, and they got that money back in a year, basically. And now 7 million people die across our globe from cigarettes. 7 million, every single year. Now, everything I've shared with you up until this point is about susceptibility to addiction. The adolescent brain, stimulated with nicotine, hallucinated with THC, and depressed with alcohol, you need to be concerned. But let me tell you about the health consequences that no one in the legislature, no one in the industry is explaining to people. Teen vaping, schools are caught in the middle of an epidemic. This is an epidemic. I would tell you with 100% certainty, 60 to 70% of the kids in this high school are vaping on a regular basis. On a regular basis. RJ Reynolds is the largest tobacco company in the world, and Altria is the second largest tobacco company in the world, and they're also the #1 and #2 vaping company in the world. Okay, so no matter what device you're talking about, a flare or a Sorin or a Juul, every e-cigarette and every vaping device has 3 components. There's a reservoir at the bottom for the liquid, the e-juice, or there's a wax pod. There's a power source, that's a battery. And then there's the atomizer. And what the atomizer does is it takes the liquid or it takes the wax and it heats it up to between 200 and 400 degrees Fahrenheit so it can aerosol into the adolescent's lungs. When it does, it becomes a volatile organic compound, it turns into a chemical structure, and it's a toxin. And what it does is it hits the respiratory system and distributes to the entire body. Okay. Most people believe these devices were invented to help people quit smoking, but that's not exactly true. They were invented to hook the next generation of smokers. The American Cancer Society feels that they're a safer alternative to cigarettes. They're an alternative, but it's not a safer alternative. The American Cancer Society's official statement is, smokers who can or won't quit should be encouraged to switch to the least harmful form of tobacco product possible. Well, I don't have an opinion on adults who want to switch. If an adult's smoking and they can or won't quit, they want to switch to a Juul or a vape, switch. 12% actually succeed, 12. 88% don't succeed. They either go back to cigarettes, or they smoke and they vape, or they stay on a vape and then they ingest more nicotine into their brain than they ever did with a cigarette. But I'm just talking about children. 7 million people die every year from cigarettes. If 12% of those 7 million people can save their life, I'm all for it. But when kids begin vaping that haven't smoked first, they increase their likelihood of adult smoking cigarettes. 18 months after initiation of the addiction of an e-cigarette, they go on cigarettes 60% of the time. So they're flavoring these pens, blueberry and strawberry and all these great flavors, to target and market our children. And the FDA is sitting on their hands. Now, the CDC says 38.4% of high school kids are vaping. When I ask the kids, is it higher or lower, they say high. I say 13% of middle school kids are vaping according to the CDC. Is it higher or lower? They never say lower. I'm telling you, 40, 50% of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders across this country are vaping. 60 to 70% of high school kids are vaping on a regular basis. Regular basis. So, the FDA statement, 2016, is right here. The FDA was given the authority to regulate e-cigarettes, but they allowed e-cigarette manufacturers to postpone their applications for FDA approval till 2022. The tobacco companies still have 3 more years. You can't go to 7-Eleven or Wawa right now and get a pack of cigarettes that doesn't have a tax stamp on it and that hasn't been FDA regulated. There's no FDA regulation of these devices. Not in New Jersey anyway. There's no regulation of the e-juice, the vape shops all up and down Route 9. They're not getting tested. None of them are getting tested. You do not know what's in the pack. In fact, the Juul doesn't even put the ingredients on the back of their packaging. They lie. One of the ingredients on the back of a Juul starter pack says flavor. That could be any number of 16 different chemicals. They're not required to put it on the packaging. So, this right here is how everybody in America died in 2016. Heart disease was number 1 and cancer was number 2. Respiratory disorders was number 3. I always ask people, when was the last time you seen a cancer walk? And they're like, oh, a couple months ago. When was the last time you seen a heart walk, right? Oh, a couple months ago. When was the last time you seen a respiratory walk? A respiratory disease 5K, or a rally for respiratory disorders. You don't see it because it doesn't exist. We don't raise money for respiratory disorders or emphysema or COPD and CLRD, but yet it's the 3rd leading cause of death in America. This is respiratory disorder right here. This is COPD. That's a lung of a 31-year-old kid. It's acute respiratory distress syndrome. He vaped for 4.5 years and died at 31 of respiratory disease. It's called acute respiratory distress syndrome. Now, I believe that respiratory disorders will jump cancer and jump heart disease within the next 7 years. And I'm writing a book about it, and I'm trying to get people to wake up. I'm very glad you're here. I'm finishing up now. I'm very glad you're here. I'm very glad that I had a chance to at least give you part of what my concern is. But I need you to understand something. You need to have conversations with your children about medical effects of these devices because they don't think it's harmful. It's just vapor. It's not harmful. It's very harmful. Very, very harmful. Governor Christie made it 21 years of age and older. You couldn't buy it. Trust me when I tell you that doesn't work. It doesn't work. Now, the Juul is the worst one you could possibly use. Juul doesn't use nicotine. Juuls use nicotine salts. It's different. It's like comparing crack cocaine to powder cocaine. Juuls use nicotine salts. And it's 5% nicotine by volume, which is more than double the next highest amount. Second to that, there's a chemical in a Juul called benzoic acid. And when the benzoic acid gets heated up to 200 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, it turns into a toxin. And one of the main parts of the body that it affects is the reproductive system. These kids are going to be in their 20s and their 30s, and they're going to have real problems with fertility because of benzoic acid heated up to a chemical. We're not doing anything about this. The state of New Jersey is failing our kids. The federal government, the FDA, is failing our kids. They're not regulating these products. My suggestion to you, after talking to your kids, visit our website, look at the conversations that we put together, look at the data that we put together. Please pick up a booklet over here. It's a little educational booklet on drugs. There's a website called drugfreeworld.org, and you can get hundreds of books and hundreds of data on drugs and alcohol that you can educate yourself on. My website has tons of information and resources, and I don't want this to stop right here. I don't want this to stop right here. I just want to share one last thing. I believe that the FDA doesn't have a choice, and in the next 24 months, they're going to have to eliminate flavored pods from the market. They're going to have to ban them. Well, the black market is going to step in. Those are 3 different orders. I ordered from China. 54 orders I've placed and had my pod sent to me for China for the top of the jewel. The one on the right, the 4 on the right, that was my first order. It was a starter kit. The ones on the left, those are my first THC pods, marijuana in a vape pod. The 2 pods in the middle is methamphetamine. I ordered meth from China. It was delivered to my house before I moved out of New Jersey last year by DHL. The New Jersey State Police Lab tested it positive for methamphetamine. I ordered meth online, and I got it delivered to my house by DHL. And it's in a jewel pod that snaps right at the top of my pen. Now, you don't have to go to China anymore for the marijuana, because this is a company called Cushing, and they make these pods for the jewel, and they ship out of Oregon, California, and Colorado. This is a Stizzy in the upper right-hand corner, and it's a Huli in the left-hand corner. There's another one called Pax that just raised $480 million last year. If you believe in marijuana legalization, well, we can agree to disagree. And if an adult wants to use marijuana, I don't have an opinion. What I'm concerned about is your kids. And like I said earlier, please understand, 90% of this is beginning between the ages of 10 and 18. And when the adolescent brain is affected, that early on, you change the development of the brain. So 90% of this is beginning between the ages of 10 and 18. You have to have the conversations about alcohol, about marijuana, and about nicotine, and what the devices could possibly contain from a chemical standpoint that was going to affect them for the rest of your life. So my website's steeredstraight.org. You can follow me on Facebook, Michael Reagan De Leon. I post every day of data and information and news articles to keep you up to date. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Mike, for sharing all of your information. I know it's a lot to hear, but everything's very important and relevant to our youth. So please feel free to go on his website or ask me any questions that you have. At this time, we're going to raffle, so get your raffle tickets out. Most people left, so hopefully you're still here. All right, first 3 numbers should be 188. Last 4 is 4225.